We see a man named Yoshida who is finally having dinner date with the girl he used to have crush on. But after the date, Ari expressed her gratitude for the lovely evening. Yoshida finally gathered the courage to ask her to be his girlfriend, but unfortunately, she declined, as she was already been in a relationship for 5 years. Feeling rejected, Yoshida spent time with his friend, expressing his frustration and wondering that Ari had said something about her relationship earlier. As the night grew late, Yoshida's friend decided to head home, leaving him to walk home alone, feeling angry and upset with Ari. As he strolls along, Yoshida spots a girl sitting under a street lamp and wonders why she's out at such a late hour. Concerned for her safety, he approached her and asked her what she's doing so late here. He suggests that she should go home, but the girl replied that there are no more trains running. Yoshida is surprised and asks if she intends to stay there all night. The girl smiles and suggests that she could stay at his place. She addresses him as Mr. He asks her what kind of girl would stay at a stranger's place. She then reveals that she has nowhere else to go and no money to pay for accommodation. Yoshida was surprised and invited her to his home and asks if he's expected to let her stay for free. To his surprise, the girl offers to let him sleep with her in exchange for a place to stay. Yoshida is shocked by her words and wonders if all girls these days are like this. He realizes that she's just a crazy and firmly tells her not to make such jokes. The girl insists that Yoshida should let her stay for free despite the state of his dirty apartment. Yoshida feels that it's not his problem and plans to kick her out the next morning. He goes to bed and allows her to do as she pleases. However, she starts to undress and asks if he wants to do anything with her. Yoshida refuses and tells her that he's attracted to older women. The girl then asks if she can do anything for him, to which he responds by requesting miso soup. Yoshida dozes off, leaving the girl alone. The next morning, Yoshida awakens and panics, thinking that he's late for work, only to remember that it's a Sunday. He smells something cooking and hears the girl greeting him with, "Good morning." Yoshida wakes up confused and doesn't remember what happened the previous night. He questions why a high school girl is in his house, but she reminds him that he had agreed to let her stay. Yoshida is initially skeptical of her claim, but she insists that he did indeed agree to it. Worried that he may have done something inappropriate, Yoshida asks if he did anything to her. The girl stares at him, causing him to feel uneasy, but she assures him that she's just joking. Then she assures him that he refused to do anything with her, which he's relieved to hear. She then prepares miso soup for him, but Yoshida warns her not to make soup at a stranger's house. The girl points out that he was the one who asked for it. Yoshida tells her to stop and asks her to leave. She asks if he really doesn't remember anything from the previous night, but Yoshida is still puzzled. As his memories start to return, he recalls her presence. The girl then asks for his name, and Yoshida introduces himself. She urges him to eat the soup she prepared. Irritated by her bossy behavior, Yoshida tells her not to tell him what to do. As Yoshida eats the miso soup, he realizes that it tastes good. The girl next to him asks if he would have preferred Ari to make it instead. Yoshida wonders how she knows Ari, and she reveals that he was saying her name in his sleep last night. Yoshida is taken aback and tells her that he doesn't need her to make him feel better. However, the girl begins to undress. Yoshida is shocked and compares them to Aries. The girl asks him what cup size Ari is, and Yoshida tells her that they're F cups. She boasts that hers are also F cups and adds that Aries might be a G or H cup. Yoshida wishes he could have felt those H cups just once. Sayu asks Yoshida why he keeps refusing her and wonders if he's the abnormal one because no man has ever turned her down. Before Yoshida grabs her and demands to know her name, Sayu reveals her real name and shows him her student ID, which indicates that she's from a distant location. Yoshida asks when she left home and says Sayu confessed that she's been gone for 6 months. She believes her family is better off without her. Yoshida questions how she plans to survive without going home or to school, and Sayu replies that she'll figure something out, like finding another place to stay. He stands up and says he'll knock some sense into her, calling her a brat who doesn't understand the value of things. She starts crying and he wonders why he can't have a normal life and love like other teenagers. He decides to make her do the chores around the apartment as her first job. She comments that it sounds like she can stay with him forever, but he clarifies that she can only stay until she figures out what she wants to do. Yoshida thinks that this arrangement is better than letting you continue to wander around and possibly fall into dangerous situations. However, he knows he needs to be cautious with his words so that she doesn't get too comfortable with the situation. He makes it clear to her that she can only stay until she stops behaving like a brat and warns her that if she tries to seduce him again, he'll have no choice but to kick her out. She agrees to his conditions, and so begins a new chapter in their lives at his workplace. Yoshida confides in his friend about what happened after he left home. His friend cautions him about the potential risks of the situation. As Yoshida returns home, he worries about whether or not she has eaten anything. He remembers his friend's advice about not getting too attached to her. Upon arriving home, he finds that Sayu has prepared pairing food. He notices that she has ironed all of his clothes, and he thinks to himself that she is good at doing chores. When he asks her where the ashtray is, she gives it to him. After stepping out to smoke, Sayu questions why Yoshida doesn't smoke inside. He responds that it's because she's there, to which she calls him nice. However, Yoshida gets frustrated, asking why she's basing her values on those other guys. He tries to explain that he's not nice, but rather the other guys were just bad and that she should have higher standards for herself. Sayu says that she understands, but Yoshida can't help but wonder why he's the only one taking care of her like a guardian. He reflects on how the world is full of awful people, including himself, for providing her with a place to stay and enabling her to run away. He's unsure of what he should do next. The next morning, Yoshida hears Sayu in pain and finds out she has been wearing the same clothes every day. Sayu tells him that it's the only thing she feels sympathetic to. Yoshida decides to take her to a mall to buy her new clothes and a new mattress since she wakes up in pain every morning. Sayu tries to refuse, saying that she won't know how to repay him. However, Yoshida realizes that she's not being modest but instead is hesitant because she cannot repay him. He wonders why a child would think like that and tells her that doing chores for him is enough of a repayment. Sayu agreed, and Yoshida feels that this should be enough of a reason. After sleeping on her new mattress, Sayu expresses her satisfaction with it and asks Yoshida if he wants to sleep with her with a teasing smirk. However, she quickly assures him that she wasn't being weird and that he's the one with dirty thoughts. Yoshida finds her laughter endearing, and she thanks him for everything. The next day, his friend tells him about a rumor that Yoshida has a new girlfriend because he seems cleaner, better dressed, and goes home early. Yoshida thinks that Sayu isn't his type but acknowledges that she's cute and responsible. He wonders why she left her home and came all the way to Tokyo. The following day, Sayu asks Yoshida why he doesn't shave his facial hair, and he explains that he only shaves it when it gets too long because it makes him feel old. He says that being too lazy to shave is a sign of getting old, but Sayu disagrees and tells him that his facial hair doesn't look good on him. Yoshida looks at himself in the mirror and decides to shave his facial hair. During their mall trip, Yoshida purchases more things for Sayu and inquires if she owns a phone. Sayu admits that she doesn't have one and confesses that she threw her old phone into the ocean. Yoshida scolds her for such a foolish act and suggests that she should get a phone so that he can contact her. Sayu argues that she doesn't really need one since he already got her moisturizer, but he notices that her smile seems insincere and wonders if it's genuine after returning from the mall. Yoshida tells Sayu that he plans to read the books he bought on the weekends, but he also offers her the chance to read them without spoiling them for him. However, he notices that she looks sad and is about to ask her why, but stops himself and claims it's nothing. When he urges her to speak up, she starts fake laughing. Yoshida realizes that she's forcing herself to smile and tells her to stop. He reminds her that although it may not be her home, she's allowed to live there and doesn't need to act strangely or fake her smile. She approaches him and admits that she was going to ask why he's so kind and that he's the kindest person she's ever met. She adds that if he wants her to stop acting weird, she will try to do so. She explains that her fake smiles have become a habit for her, but she'll do her best to stop. He reassures her that she can take her time, and she thinks he's really kind. She confesses that no one has ever given her this much freedom or choices before, and she wants to make him happy that she came into his life. He chuckles and compliments her for being kind as well, and he's looking forward to her cooking and expects great food. She promises not to let him down. During work, he summons Mishima to inform her that their project's code has bugs and cannot be sold. He explains that they will need to work overtime together to fix it. Ari observes their conversation. They spend the entire night working on the project, and Yoshida brings Mishima food. She asks him about how he has been shaving his beard every day. He wonders why she's asking, and she mentions the rumors about him having a girlfriend. He denies the rumors and admits that he was recently rejected by Ari. Mishima offers him words of encouragement, but he declines any pity. She reassures him that she genuinely feels lucky to be his friend and suggests they go out for drinks soon. Upon arriving home late, Sayu expresses her frustration to him for being late and even having food prepared for him. He apologizes for the delay, but she just chuckles and reveals that she was only joking. Although he tells her not to tease him, she finds it amusing how he apologized so formally and suggests that he eats the food the next day. Yoshida's friends suggest that he should have asked Sayu what color phone she would prefer. Yoshida responds that Sayu would have likely refused if he had asked, so he decided to buy it without her input. His friend notes that Yoshida must really like Sayu since he is putting so much effort into choosing the design. Yoshida explains that because Sayu is a girl, she would care about the design of the phone. His friend points out that this means Yoshida cares about her happiness and advises him to be careful in his interactions with her. He warns Yoshida that you might develop feelings for him or vice versa, and Yoshida assures him that it's impossible because he prefers older women with larger breasts. His friend laughs and suggests that Yoshida choose a safe color, like black or white. At the workplace, Yoshida appears restless and keeps checking the time. But his friend advises him to stay calm since they'll only end up working late if he doesn't. Later on, Ari approaches him and asks if they can talk at a later time. His friend jokes that when she rejects him, that's when their relationship will truly begin. Yoshida enjoys his dinner with Ari. Despite feeling nervous, he manages to build up the courage to speak but ends up choking on his words. Ari suggests they should relax by playing a game where they take turns asking each other questions that must be answered truthfully during their dinner. Yoshida asks Ari why she invited him there. In response, Ari asks if he's dating someone, but he denies it. Ari calls him out on his lie, pointing out that in the 5 years she's known him he's always looked tired and never went home early. However, recently he's been leaving work early, shaving facial hair and taking care of his appearance. She then asks him if he's been getting close with Mishima, but Yoshida tries to clarify things. He confesses that he's been working with Mishima for 5 years, but has only had feelings for Ari. He tells her that she's always been special to him, and he still feels the same way. Yoshida questions why Ari even cares about whether or not he has a girlfriend given that she rejected him before. He believes that if she truly didn't like him, she wouldn't be bothered by his relationship status. When Ari tries to offer an excuse, he sees right through it and presses her for the real reason why she invited him to dinner. After some hesitation, Ari admits that it's important. Yoshida is convinced that Ari is not interested in him romantically. When Yoshida arrives home, Sayu notices that he looks sad and asks him about it. At first, he doesn't want to tell her, but eventually he confesses that he had dinner with Ari. Sayu asks him if it was fun, but he admits that it wasn't. She offers him a hug, which he accepts and admits that it makes him feel better. Sayu then suggests that he take a shower to wash away any negative feelings. Apart from that, he was also smelling awful. Yoshida feels ashamed that he's seeking comfort from Sayu. As he sips his miso soup, he pulls out a gift from his bag and presents it to Sayu. She unwraps it to find a new phone, and she's surprised as to why he bought it for her. Yoshida admits that it's because he wants to be able to reach her when she's out. Sayu thanks him and asks if she can really have it. She notices that he also got her a white phone case, and she mentions that she likes the color white. Yoshida is pleased to hear that, and they proceed to add each other's contact information to their phones, despite his friend's warning that he might fall for her. Yoshida still believes that he only sees Sayu as a young girl he needs to look after. Sayu notes that Yoshida is her only friend and label his contact as Yoshida Man, giving him a warm smile. Yoshida ponders Sayu's genuine smile and realizes that he doesn't quite comprehend teenagers. Yoshida goes to work and sits with Mishima, where a colleague approaches him and questions why he declined a business trip. The colleague assumes it's because Yoshida has a girlfriend, and Mishima jumps in and asks if Yoshida is indeed in a relationship. He tells them that he is expecting a package to arrive in the next 2 weeks. His friend leaves him alone, and Mishima kicks him for no reason. Later, Mishima asks Yoshida if he would like to go to the movies with her, and although he initially didn't want to, Yoshida decides to use it as an opportunity to teach Ari a lesson for rejecting him at home. Sayu worries about how long she can stay with Yoshida. She knows that when he finds a girlfriend, he will likely kick her out just like all the other men she stayed with before. Upon receiving a message from Yoshida, he says he will be going to the movies with Mishima. When the movie finishes, Yoshida mentions a quote from the professor expressing the idea that encounters only feel fated after they happen. Mishima engages in a philosophical conversation with Yoshida while Sayu begins running away again. Yoshida asks Mishima if she has ever had a fated encounter, and she tells him she has, which leads to an awkward moment between them. Mishima hugs Yoshida, causing Sayu to feel sad and leave. Yoshida disentangles himself from Mishima and expresses his gratitude for coming with him to the movie. Mishima inquires what Yoshida would do if she were the person he is fated to meet, but Yoshida dismisses the idea as foolish and urges her to go home as he walks back to his home. He wonders if his encounter with Sayu was destined by fate. Upon arriving home, he calls out to Sayu, but receives no response. Noticing that her phone is still at home, he becomes frantic and runs out to search for her, fearing that she may have been kidnapped. Meanwhile, Sayu wonders why Yoshida had that face with Mishima, a face he's never made when he's with Sayu. She starts crying, realizing that she is feeling jealous of someone she doesn't even know. At that moment, Yoshida's co-worker Mishima finds Sayu and decides to stay with her until the last train arrives in order to deviate any police that may approach her. They then have a heart-to-heart talk with each other. Just then, Yoshida arrives at the scene and approaches Sayu, noting that he's been searching for her. Not wanting to get between the two, Mishima lets the two go home together, but not before stating that she demands a full explanation about everything between Sayu and him. The two then sit together, and Yoshida admits that she's been more of a help to him than she's realized. This confession leaves Sayu tearfully emotional, and Yoshida offers her to stay with him until she decides to go home, and Sayu accepts the offer internally. Yoshida thinks that's when they finally really started to live together on her knees. Sayu requests Yoshida's permission to be allowed to get a job, and he agrees to it, which surprises Sayu for his quick response and acceptance, as she's supposed to only do chores around the house. When asked if she had any particular place in mind by Yoshida, Sayu answers she's interested in the store nearby the house called Comfort. Happy about Sayu's decision to get a job, Yoshida also notes that Sayu may find other people there that are around her age and make some new friends as well. On the first day of her new job, Sayu has been shown the ropes of the job by her senior, Asami Yuki, who insists Sayu not be so polite and call her simply Asami. By dusk, the two get ready to go home, and Asami inquires where Sayu happens to live, to which she answers that it's 5 minutes away from their job. Intrigued that it's the same for her, Asami asks to one day be shown her place, but Sayu refuses, due to the fact that the person she's living with might not want that. The conversation escalates to Sayu heavily insinuating that she's not living with a boyfriend, but she insists that that's not the case, that the person is just a brother figure to her. In light of all of that, Asami decides to visit Sayu's house and see who her brother is while at work. Yoshida gets a text from Sayu about the situation involving Asami coming over, which leaves him flabbergasted. Both Mishima and Hashimoto find out about the text and talk about it while their conversation is in audible range. That night, Yoshida arrives home and is immediately gauged by Asami, who rates him as a hot older dude. Asami then introduces herself to Yoshida and thinks that Yoshida seems to be a decent fellow, at least once they're settled in the living room. Yoshida tells Asami a fabricated story that Sayu and him are childhood friends with a 9-year gap between them. Sayu, who was washing the dishes, listens in on the conversation and chimes in when more details to clarify the story are needed during the story. Yoshida almost lets the truth slip out, but Sayu announced that dinner is ready, impressed by the meal you cooked. Asami compliments it as delicious and notes how lucky Yoshida is for having you cooked his meals. After the meal, Asami denotes how small Yoshida's room is and responds that it'll be bigger once Asami is gone. In a moment, Asami calls Yoshida her soulmate, which upsets Yoshida and makes Sayu laugh at how well the two are getting along, deciding to leave. Asami asks Yoshida to walk home with her, to which he begrudgingly agrees. Sayu also tries to tag along, but Asami states that she needs to stay, since it's a man's job to escort a woman home on their walk. Asami points out the obvious lie involving you and him and wants to know the truth about their relationship together, although Yoshida inadvertently confirms their relationship isn't all true but affirms that he is in fact a big brother figure to her. She is relieved to hear that from Yoshida. Asami compliments him as a good guy, and from there walks home by herself before they part ways. They talk with each other more, and Yoshida requests that Asami be Sayu's friend, which amuses her. One piece of advice that Asami gives is that Sayu has different kinds of smiles and that Yoshida should be careful of them. The two then part ways as Yoshida is left perplexed by Asami's comment. The following night at the IT company that Yoshida works at, Yoshida finishes up his work for the day right as he was about to send a text to Sayu. Ari approaches Yoshida and invites him to come with her once again. Ari takes Yoshida to the same restaurant as before and questions his relationship with Yuzuha and his reason for turning down a business trip. Before Yoshida answers Ari's question, he demands to know why Ari cares about his personal affairs and refuses to answer her question until she answers his. In response to that, Ari sheepishly answered that it's because she likes him. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Sayu prepared dinner for that night, but is shocked to find out that once again Yoshida is having dinner with Ari. So Sayu responds with Roger that, have fun, and lament that the food she made tasted so good. Back to Yoshida and Ari, it's revealed that Ari lied about being in a relationship with someone for over 5 years. Further, for more information by Yoshida, who details that her intuition told her to wait. However, Yoshida believes that Ari is bluffing him, thinking she's just making fun of him. Ari refutes that notion and asks what it'd take to prove it to him, and Yoshida requests that they sleep together. Yoshida then said that he was bluffing, but Ari admits that she's a virgin in response to the confession. Yoshida begs for forgiveness for his impertinent request and asks that Ari not lie to him. To that point, Ari confesses that she really does have feelings for him. This causes an awkward silence between the two, breaking the silence. Yoshida claims he'll never ask Ari out again, but when the time is right, he asks that Ari ask him out instead. After listening to Yoshida's reasoning, Ari admits that she understands and promises to one day ask him out. Now changing the subject, Ari asks for an answer that she asked Yoshida earlier. Returning to Yoshida's apartment, Sayu ate the dinner she made and notes how it tastes. She then notes how lonely she feels, triggering a flashback that causes her to have an anxiety attack and causes her to rush into the restroom to vomit. Yoshida then sends a text to Sayu detailing that he's coming home with Ari. However, Sayu misinterprets this as being kicked out, but he reassures her that all she does is want to meet her. This clarification left Sayu perplexed. On the way back to his apartment, a talk between Yoshida and Ari is held, explaining his situation with Sayu. Upon reaching the apartment, Ari introduces herself and offers Sayu some snacks she bought at a convenience store. Various kinds of snacks were laid across the table as the truth about Sayu's relationship with Yoshida was told to Ari. The room enters an awkward silence when Ari is confused by what you said and how surprising it is to her to feel the tension behind the silence. Yoshida leaves the room to use the bathroom, and Ari proposes that she talk alone with Sayu as she's certain she has questions about her entering the scene again. Yoshida is tasked by Sayu to go to the convenience store to pick up some ingredients. Although appearing to be discouraged, Sayu takes a deep breath and faces smiling Ari sitting quietly at the table as Yoshida ignorantly heads to the store. Ari then asks Sayu some questions about her backstory and then asks the bombshell question of how long she's going to stay at Yoshida's apartment. Meanwhile, Yoshida runs into Mishima in the streets. Apparently, she took a detour from the train station and ended up there. On the other hand, Yoshida is asked by Mishima his reason why he's out so late, and he answers it to buy some stuff for breakfast because Sayu requested it, learning that you were also at his house. Mishima requests that she tag along on Yoshida's shopping trip back to Yoshida's apartment. Sayu gives no answer to Ari's question. Ari goes on to state how special teenage girls are and elaborates on the reason behind it. Happy to hear what Ari told her, Sayu elaborates how for the past 6 months she's run away from her problems, but deep down inside, she wanted someone to tell her not to run away furthermore. Sayu mentions how she survived in those months, and until she met Yoshida who promised to set her straight. Hearing this, Ari begins to chuckle and then states how she's happy that Sayu has found a safe place. However, she advises Sayu that it's all right to be nice to Yoshida, but in an appropriate fashion. Reflecting on her past actions, Sayu confesses that she doesn't want to go back to it all. However, Sayu acknowledges that she cannot do this forever, and that one day she'll confront her past for her sake and Yoshida's. Ari then embraces Sayu and praises her for her courage, returning to Yoshida who tries to part ways with Mishima, but she asks if it's alright if she can stay at his place that night. Yoshida flatly refuses, which leads into a minor argument between the two about her being able to stay over that escalates when Mishima asks what if Ari asks him the same question. Hesitant to answer the question, Mishima calls out Yoshida for having Ari over his apartment and details how she deduced it by stalking him that night. In light of that, Mishima apologizes for doing such a weird thing, but Yoshida thinks nothing of it once again. At Yoshida's apartment, Sayu asks Ari if she's in love with Yoshida, taking a brief pause. Ari giggles at the question and asks if that's all you wanted to ask her, to which Sayu states it's an important question to her. Ari then responds that she does love Yoshida and no one else. Ever since Yoshida joined the company, Ari has had her eye on Yoshida. This makes Sayu happy to hear because Yoshida would get the woman he wants. Here at store, Mishima confesses that she thought that Yoshida was taking Ari home to spend the night together while you were away. Yoshida denies that's the case, but then Mishima asks him if he still loves Ari, to which he answers yes. Mishima then claims that what Yoshida is doing is practically illogical, and as the woman he loves is at his house with a teenage girl he's taken care of, admitting that it is a weird situation. Yoshida states there's technically nothing he can do about it, but still, Mishima argues the two can't compare with each other in his rebuttal. Yoshida asks Mishima if she's suggesting that he kicks Sayu out, and she refutes the notion that what Mishima was asking Yoshida was his priority and states if he were to date Ari, then he'd have to hide Sayu, but Yoshida, that'd mean he'd have to kick her out after temporarily losing her cool. Mishima asks if Yoshida's love for Ari is sincere and not a saturated mix of pure love and admiration. Yoshida denies that fact, but Mishima then calls Yoshida far too nice and states that when you're like that, you never get the things you really want. In the first part, we saw Mishima call Yoshida far too nice and state, when you're like that, you never get the things you really want. Again apologizing for what she said and for keeping him for so long, Mishima goes on her way. Yoshida, finally able to return home, walks in on Ari applying makeup to Sayu's face. Sayu asks for Yoshida's opinion on her new look. Uncomfortably, Yoshida gives a compliment. Playfully, Ari and Sayu then criticize Yoshida for his half-hearted compliment. Later, Yoshida walks with Ari, and the two talk about Sayu. Notably, Ari warns Yoshida not to do anything to Sayu, as she's on her hotline now, and Yoshida reassures her that he wouldn't ever do anything like that before separating from Yoshida. Ari warns that Sayu is unstable and will one day unleash her emotions on Yoshida. Ari is confident that Yoshida will handle the situation well, as at work he's known as the problem solver. Elsewhere, at the store, Sayu and Asami talk with a coworker about the new person working there. The coworker that Asami was talking to was named Kuya. Sayu arrives at the comfort break room and notices the name Kuya Yaguchi on the work schedule. Kuya then enters the scene, and after seeing that, Sayu turns around to introduce herself. The two instantly recognize each other. Kuya is happily surprised to see Sayu again. On the other hand, she denies ever meeting him. However, Kuya states that he never forgets a person he slept with. leaving Sayu shocked and despondent. Just as Kuya states that he didn't see Sayu's name on the work schedule, Sayu denies being that person. Asami enters the room, taking note of the situation at hand. Asami kicks Kuya out of the room and takes him out of the picture. She consoles Sayu. After work, Sayu walks home, and she thinks that she has had no encounter with Kuya since her confrontation with him. Kuya strikes up a conversation with the uncomfortable Sayu, asking her how she's been since he last saw her. Sayu once again denies ever knowing Kuya and tries to evade him, but he grabs Sayu's arm and demands that he come over to her house just to talk with her, or so he claims. Although Sayu refuses to allow Kuya over due to her not being allowed anyone over without permission, Kuya is insistent and blackmails Sayu, saying that he'll tell Asami about their past actions together. Afraid of the threat, Sayu asks Kuya if he will just come over to talk. Hence, Kuya reassures Sayu that he'll leave before the owner arrives. So as some reassurance, Sayu notifies Yoshida via text message about the situation. At Yoshida's apartment, Kuya notes how clean it is, and Sayu details that she's the one who keeps it so tidy. Initially, the conversation between them is appropriate, and until Kuya asks the bombshell question about their true interactions with each other, Sayu then answers that in the 2 months she's been there, they haven't done such a thing. Surprised by the revelation, Kuya then tries to manhandle Sayu, and during this, Sayu smacks him. Kuya gets on top of Sayu as she reflects on how foolish she was to allow Kuya into Yoshida's apartment and the trouble it would cause him. That is, until Yoshida bursts through the front door in a frantic manner, and after questioning Sayu about her relationship with Kuya, he kicks him out. Yoshida then interrogates Kuya, who reveals that a few months ago Sayu stayed at his house. He also claims that although Yoshida is like a caretaker to Sayu, he'll have to be responsible for her schooling, college, etc. So will he continue being her savior despite the risks? Yoshida's inner monologue reflects on his morals by taking in Sayu, and in a rebuttal, he proclaims that he hopes to be the one who teaches her what's right and wrong. Unimpressed by Yoshida's response, Kuya tries to leave, but Yoshida has him promise to stay away from Sayu, returning to his apartment. Yoshida and Sayu have a heart-to-heart talk with each other about Sayu's past and well-being. When Sayu asks why Yoshida does what he does, in his response, Yoshida claims that he wants Sayu to live a normal teenage life. The following day, Sayu unhappily works at her job. Hence, Asami notices and asks her if something had occurred the previous day involving Kuya. To answer that, Sayu pretends nothing happened, and because of this, Asami approaches Kuya in the break room and asks him if he did anything to Sayu the day before going. Along with the scenario, Asami smacks Kuya in the face and demands that he apologize to Sayu. Kuya promises to do that right when a customer arrives in the store and Asami leaves the room to help the customer. Once Asami is gone, Kuya gives a half-hearted apology. Sayu asks him why he didn't reveal their past to her, but he recites his promise not to do that. Hearing that makes Sayu laugh and admit that if Kuya ever made any inappropriate advances to her again, she'd lose it, finding the answer a bit humorous, and before leaving the room, he states how Yoshida treats her like he once did. Around dusk after work, Sayu was notified by Yoshida that he's going to be staying at work late that day. So Asami says that she'll stay with Sayu that day, and Yoshida allows it. Before they headed to a special place that Asami wanted to take her, they stopped by her parents' house to pick up something, which amazed Sayu because of the house's size and design. Asami reveals that her father is a politician and her mother is a lawyer. The two then walk to their destination, and as they do, Sayu reveals her backstory to Asami. By nightfall, the two reach their destination, which was a perfect spot for stargazing. Asami then reveals her parents' plans for her future, which are against her own dream of becoming an author. When Asami told her mother her dream, she flipped out on Asami, but her father took her to that very spot and showed her the starry night. They then had a heart-to-heart with each other, and although Asami didn't agree with her father, she still enjoyed her time with him there. Asami then tried to console and motivate Sayu, who appreciated Asami's kind words. The following day, Yoshida arrived home early from work and brought some food. He also apologized for not protecting her, but Sayu argued that he did in fact protect her. Sayu then explained that no matter where she went, it was all the same. But that changed with Yoshida, and because of that, she wished to think about the future. In light of this, Yoshida promised to help Sayu to the best of his ability to achieve her goal. Sayu hugged Yoshida and welcomed him. The next day, once they were alone at the comfort market, Sayu and Asami talked about whether Yoshida would allow Asami to come over or not. Asami noted his opinion of how often she came over, to which Asami retorted that it was summer break and that she and Sayu were soulmates, right? As Asami was about to restock the store shelves, an unmarked black car pulled up by the store, and its male driver looked inside for a brief moment before driving away. Asami detailed how the car parked at that particular spot all the time and then drove away, causing Sayu to look notably concerned. Back at Yoshida's apartment, Sayu helped Asami study literature, which Asami found a pain to do. A flashback involving Sayu and Yoshida showed them talking a bit about Sayu's plans for the future and her hopes to stay with Yoshida a little longer. Back in the present, Sayu contemplated more about her future until Asami interrupted her to ask why she was so lost in thought. Sayu told Asami that she was thinking about what to make for dinner. Asami complimented Sayu for being such a good housewife-like person and suggested they get a special bento that's sold at the store during exam season. While at the IT company, Yoshida received a text from someone who was presumed to be Sayu, and Yuzuha watched in jealousy, noting how she didn't have Yoshida's number. Just then, Ari approached Yoshida and asked him a question about some documents she had recently sent him again. Yuzuha watched in jealousy as she observed Aries and Yoshida's interactions with each other. Once they separated, Yuzuha confronted Ari at her desk and asked to have lunch with her soon afterward in the cafeteria. Yuzuha questioned Ari about what she thought of Yoshida, which led to the big question of whether or not she knew about his quote-unquote girlfriend, referring to Sayu. Ari honestly answered her thoughts and opinions about Yoshida and said that she was aware of Sayu, although she noted that Sayu was not his girlfriend. Yuzuha then asked another big question, whether or not Ari would be upset if Yoshida chose Sayu over her. Ari answered no, because if Yoshida chose Sayu over her, she wouldn't want to interfere and become Yoshida's girlfriend by using unnatural tricks. However, Yuzuha argued that Ari was merely scared. Her reason being that even if Ari worked hard for what she wanted, she'd lose it one day, so it would be best to patiently wait for a good opportunity. Perplexed by this conversation, Ari tried to reason with Yuzuha, who then went on a mini-rant about her fear of losing. She was then stopped by Ari, who made her notice that she had caused a scene and continued to answer Yuzuha's question. She stated that it was best to wait for Yoshida to decide with whom he would start a relationship. Yuzuha then bluntly asked if Ari loved Yoshida, and she confessed that she did. However, she stated that anything she did wouldn't matter. Put off by Ari's answer, Yuzuha asked her what was wrong with her, but Ari responded by calling Yuzuha cute. Late that afternoon, just as Yoshida was leaving work, he got a text from Sayu about dinner. Yuzuha approached Yoshida and asked him if he wanted to see a movie. However, Yoshida refused, detailing that Sayu had made something special for dinner. Although sad about his refusal, Yuzuha then insisted that Yoshida give her his contact information and demanded his phone for the exchange process. Yoshida spoke in a condescending manner about himself, involving texting people and saying she had nothing to talk about with him. On the other hand, Yuzuha interpreted the answer as Yoshida not considering himself attractive enough to give his contact information away unless it was to someone special to him. Yoshida confirmed this, and Yuzuha went on a mini-rant about how it was unfair that Yoshida decided everything by his own standards. This led to Yuzuha confessing her love for Yoshida, only to backtrack and say that her love for him was only a little. After that was all settled, they finally exchanged their contact information, and immediately Yuzuha sent Yoshida a text asking him out to see a movie sometime. In response to the text, Yoshida sent a text saying she was sure amused by his response. She noted how childish he could be, but stated before leaving that it was something she liked about him. Later that night, at Yoshida's apartment, Yoshida learned that the special dinner was really some katsudan. Sayu revealed that she got it from her work at Asami's suggestion and stated how the food was popular around exam periods because of its association with winning. As they ate, Yoshida asked what he was supposed to be winning and said it should be himself, as people are typically their own worst enemies. In Yoshida's inner monologue, he reflected on how he was his own worst enemy and how he had made a lot of choices to help Sayu, but considered it doing the things he wanted to do. Sayu curiously asked if Yoshida was unhappy with their meal, and he responded that he wasn't, but stated how weird it was to eat katsudan in the summer. The following day, Sayu did her daily chores around the house, and Yoshida decided to help out. However, Sayu dragged Yoshida onto his bed and proclaimed that the chores around the house were her job. Although Yoshida insisted that he help out a little, Sayu refused any help and tried to push him back onto his bed, causing the two to fall on each other. After this scene, Yoshida followed Sayu's advice to take a shower. During Yoshida's shower, Sayu found a box in his closet and asked if it was all right to look into it, and Yoshida allowed her to do it. Inside the box was a note from his mother and his high school graduation album. Browsing through it, Sayu found a picture of a young Yoshida with a young girl. Yoshida finished his shower and talked about the girl in the picture as someone who was the senior everyone admired, recalling how the girl called him clingy. Apparently, Yoshida was in a relationship with her in high school, and it was said that he spent a lot of time with her because he thought it was natural. Eventually, at the comfort market, Sayu worked by the counter with Kuya, and the car that stalked the store stopped by again, leaving Sayu completely distraught. The backseat passenger exited, and Kuya told Sayu to retreat into the back room. The car passenger then entered the store and handed Kuya his business card. revealing his name as Kazuto Ojiwara, CEO of Ojiwara Foods. Kazuto asked a couple of questions involving Sayu and the manager of the store, but Kuya brushed them off. Sayu then explained to Asami about her relationship with the man. Kuya then entered the back room to inform the two that the coast was clear, but warned that he might not be able to keep him at bay for much longer. Sayu realized this, but thought that now was not the time to walk home from work. Sayu thought that now that her brother was trying to find her, she had to go home. A text message from Yoshida revealed that he was going to be home late from work, and this made Sayu sad. Eventually, while intending to go on a shopping trip, Sayu bumped into Yuzuha, and they talked. Soon, Sayu spotted her brother, accompanied by his chauffeur, and hid behind Yuzuha in a panic. After being told about Sayu's situation, Yuzuha took Sayu to a karaoke bar, where they enjoyed some drinks together. Sayu then was going to text Yoshida about her situation, but was uncertain what to write. So Yuzuha advised her to simply tell him straight about her situation. Still, Sayu was hesitant. So Yuzuha texted Yoshida their location and invited him over if he wanted to join them. Later at the IT company, Yoshida finally finished his work, and Hashimoto suggested he head home to see Sayu. However, Yoshida is perplexed by the text he gets from Sayu saying that she's having a good time. From there, Sayu and Yuzuha have a heart-to-heart conversation about the person searching for Sayu. Yuzuha immediately asks if Sayu is running away from a crime, but Sayu denies it, not wanting to press for more specifics. Yuzuha repeats what Kia once stated, that Sayu doesn't have much time left. Sayu understands this. Yuzuha then asks why she's out shopping, and Sayu answers that she's simply fulfilling one of the conditions for living at Yoshida's apartment. Yuzuha claims that the two are psychologically connected and asks how Sayu would feel if she were torn apart from Yoshida. What is Sayu's relationship with Yoshida? Is he just helping her, or are they in love? Sayu tries to deny both. Yuzuha backtracks and apologizes for her comments, then advises Sayu to seriously consider what she wants to do now. At that moment, Yoshida arrives and decides to take Sayu home. He extends an invitation to Yuzuha to join them, but she declines before leaving. Yoshida promises to take Yuzuha out for a movie later. Once Yoshida is gone, Yuzuha has a tearful meltdown, lamenting how Yoshida does not look at her the same way he looks at Sayu and how he doesn't reciprocate her love. While walking home, Sayu asks if there's anything Yoshida would like to do, but he doesn't have a clue. They then spot a poster for a summer festival set to start the following day. After discussing it, they decide to go the following night. When they head to the summer festival, Sayu notices Yoshida is hesitant to look at her because of the yukata she's wearing. Sayu forces Yoshida to check her yukata out, and he simply calls it pretty. This causes a bit of a scene between the two, but when a couple of kids run by with cotton candy, Yoshida buys some for Sayu. While Sayu enjoys the cotton candy, she tells Yoshida how good it is and then shares some with him. A young boy bumps into Sayu, and she nearly trips, but Yoshida grabs her arm, preventing her from falling. Although hesitant to continue holding Sayu's hand, she insists they continue so they don't get lost. Soon after, they watch the fireworks go off. Yoshida's inner monologue reveals that he would have never gone to the festival had it not been for Sayu. He reflects on his life at his apartment without Sayu, but when he snaps out of it, he realizes Sayu is gone. After calling out for her, Sayu appears behind him, saying she told him she was going to throw away some trash. They continue watching the fireworks and hold hands. Sayu asks if Yoshida thought she had disappeared, and he confesses that was the case, for which Sayu apologizes. Yoshida then asks if Sayu plans on returning home, but immediately retracts the question, telling her to forget about it. Once the fireworks are finished, Sayu claims that out of all the men she has stayed with, he's the only one she gave her real name. After a heart-to-heart conversation, Yoshida and Sayu return home together. The following day, Sayu's older brother, Issa, appears at Yoshida's apartment, claiming he's there to take Sayu home. She ran away because of a horrible relationship she had with her mother. Although her brother has found her and is set on taking her back home to their mother, Sayu refuses, claiming she's not ready yet. Issa tries to reason with her, claiming that there are adults who would take advantage of her, but she argues that Yoshida isn't that kind of person. Later, everyone sits in Yoshida's living room to talk things over. Issa first asks if the two have done anything inappropriate together, which they deny. Issa then reveals that their mother is worried about her, but Sayu refuses to believe that and wishes to know the real reason. Issa states that Sayu's teacher has come looking for her several times since she left, and their mother has stayed silent and locked in her room. Yoshida then requests that Issa gives Sayu 3 days to decide whether or not she'll return home, seemingly reluctant to the request. Issa asks if he can have a brief moment alone with his sister and promises that he won't take her away. Yoshida allows it, and Sayu agrees to talk with him soon. Issa leaves the apartment and gets his car. Back inside the apartment, Yoshida and Sayu talk about their encounter with Isa. Sayu confesses that she's a little anxious, but when she's with Yoshida, she feels relaxed. When she's ready, Sayu heads to her brother's car, and Yoshida feels the stubble on his face and decides to shave. While Sayu is out, the conversation between Sayu and her brother starts with him being relieved that she's found a decent person to stay with. Isa also reveals that their mother contacts him every day, asking if he's found her yet, and that she's become unstable since Sayu's disappearance. He suggests that Sayu return home for now, and that he'll do all he can to help her. Sayu confesses that she originally left because of her mental pain. She later realized that wherever she went, it was no different, and that she had always been alone. However, Yoshida made her realize how stupid she was and the important things she lost leading up to him. Hence, she resolved to think for herself and what she wanted to be until she knew what she'd take home with her. After coming all that way, she refused to go home. Surprisingly, Isa understands and notes that Sayu has changed a little, saying she speaks her mind more openly than before. He then informs Sayu that he'll buy her a week at maximum, and Sayu thanks him. Afterward, Asami comes over to Yoshida's apartment and is brought up to date on Sayu's situation. Yoshida admits that Isa gave Sayu's decision more respect than he anticipated. From there, Sayu goes in depth about her past, which caused her to run away from home. Sayu admits that she never got along with her mother, which was one of the reasons that when she got into high school, she never put any effort into anything. Things like schoolwork and hanging out with friends didn't matter to her, and because of it, she was avoided in school, which was fine with her. However, a single person changed all of that. Her name was Yuko Misaka. In a flashback, Sayu and Yuko eat their lunch on the rooftop, and Yuko asks why Sayu always looks so cold. The question baffles Yuko, who considers her an outcast at their school, but she enjoys spending time with her. Eventually, a group of girl bullies targeted her. When Sayu asked why they were on the school rooftop, Yuko asked if she had rejected someone on the school basketball team, and Sayu said yes, she did. Apparently, one of the bullies liked the boy that Sayu rejected. Curious as to why she's not the one being targeted, Yuko states that Sayu is beautiful and cool, and she doesn't look like a bad person. This makes it hard to spread lies about her and to get people to hate her. Hence, she was targeted because of her connection with Sayu. Although Yuko claims she's alright with it, the bullies claim that Yuko is just a follower of Sayu. She denies that, claiming Yuko was her first friend. Time passes, and while walking past the girls' bathroom, Sayu overhears a group of girls talking about how they taught a girl a lesson, realizing that it was about Yuko. Sayu enters the bathroom and finds Yuko in one of the stalls, soaking wet. Right when Sayu tries to confront the girls, she is stopped by Yuko. Not wanting to back down, Sayu grabs Yuko's hand and says that she'd never betray her and that they should fight together. Yuko then embraces Sayu. In retrospect, Sayu confesses that she thought she acted with the best of intentions. However, this was by far the biggest mistake she ever made. One day on the roof, Sayu finds Yuko over the rooftop guardrail, and Yuko confesses her thoughts and opinions about Sayu and how she ruined her with her presence before leaping off the roof. Yuko's final words were, "Keep on smiling, okay?" This event left Sayu emotionally devastated. Eventually, news reporters gathered by the Ojiwara household, where Sayu's mother kept them all hidden. When Sayu meets with her mother in the dining room area, she reprimands her for everything related to Yuko's death, to which Sayu apologizes. However, she becomes angry when her mother asks if she really killed Yuko and goes on a rant about her and Yuko's friendship, believing that she's more of a hindrance than anything staying in that household. Sayu leaves, but is stopped midway by her brother Isa. She explains that she's leaving because their mom accused her of killing her friend. Understanding Sayu's disposition, he agrees that she needs some time away from their mother for a while, and later drops her off at the Asakawa station. Before she leaves, Isa gives her an envelope with 300,000 yen inside and suggests she stay in a hotel for a while and contact him if anything goes wrong. Sayu thanks Isa and parts ways with him. However, the money quickly runs out, and the feelings of loneliness and worthlessness slowly creep in. Even her brother's kindness feels like pity, so she cuts ties with him. Not long after, Sayu runs into a man who takes her in, which she initially believes is out of the goodness of his heart. However, back in the present, Sayu admits she doesn't even remember the man's name. This cycle of staying with men in exchange for favors continues until she meets Yoshida. After this revelation, Asami and Yoshida talk on his balcony about Sayu's story and what Yoshida should do. He refuses to get involved in her family issues and insists it's best for her to return home. Asami, however, asks what Yoshida wants to do about Sayu, which makes him ponder. During lunch at work, Yoshida informs Hashimoto and Yuzuha about Sayu's eventual departure back home with her brother Isa. Hashimoto tries to put a positive spin on this situation but senses Yoshida's disapproval. Yoshida then states that because Sayu ran away from home, he believes her parents weren't the best. However, Hashimoto points out that her brother is at least on her side, which Yoshida agrees with, and Hashimoto suggests not delving any deeper into Sayu's family problems. Yoshida quietly agrees, and they continue eating as Yuzuha and Hashimoto look concerned. That night, Yoshida runs into Issa, who is waiting for him outside his apartment. At a park, Issa apologizes for his rude remarks from the day before. Yoshida brushes them off, and they sit down to talk. They first discuss Yoshida's initial encounter with Sayu, then move on to her family backstory, involving her parents and most of her adolescent life. Issa confesses that Yoshida may be the first parent-like figure Sayu has ever liked. This surprises Yoshida, as Issa then bows in respect and thanks him for taking care of his sister. Yoshida brushes off the compliment as nothing special. Issa notes that only a few days remain for Yoshida to stay with Sayu and continue being by her side. Back at Yoshida's apartment, Sayu is informed of Yoshida's talk with her brother, who mentions the problems she caused and her fear of returning home. Sayu, however, realizes that she has to return home. The next day, Yuzuha drops by Yoshida's workplace, overhearing him talk with a coworker about staying overtime to help with work. Back at home, Sayu hands Yoshida a notebook filled with recipes, so he can cook meals for himself instead of constantly buying convenience store food. Yoshida appreciates the sentiment and thanks her. The following day, Hashimoto invites Yoshida to lunch, but he declines, being too busy with work. Hashimoto advises that Yoshida should take breaks, but Yoshida claims he takes smoke breaks, which isn't what Hashimoto meant. After dinner, Sayu takes Yoshida to the spot on the hill where Asami once took her. She mentions her time with Asami there and her own self-reflection. She thanks Yoshida for helping her realize her mistakes, allowing her to avoid fatal ones. Her life changed for the better when she met Yoshida, but she resolves to face her mistakes rather than keep running from them. Sayu declares that she wants to prove herself so she can live on her own one day, and when she leaves, she hopes Yoshida will cheer her on. Yoshida promises to do it. At the break room of Yoshida's work, Hashimoto, Yuzuha, and Yoshida talk about how Sayu is going to head back home tomorrow. Hashimoto suggests that Yoshida should go home and spend his remaining time with her, but Yuzuha suggests that he should follow her back to Hokkaido. Yoshida rejects this idea, thinking it was too weird, but Yuzuha argues that everything he's done so far has been weird. Yoshida then asks what would happen with work if he left, but Yuzuha reassures him that it would be all right, and Hashimoto backs her up. Yoshida then mentions that Sayu is trying to face her problems head-on, and if he gets involved in her situation, it wouldn't help her in the slightest. Yoshida gets a call from Asami, who asks if he knows where Sayu is as she's not picking up her phone and can't be found anywhere. Hashimoto reports to their superior, Ari, that Yoshida and he are not feeling well and wish to take the day off. Ari understands and allows them to leave, although Yoshida still has some work that needs to be done, which Yuzuha volunteers to complete. Driving down the highway, Hashimoto and Yoshida have a heart-to-heart about Yoshida's feelings for Sayu. Mostly, it's about how much Yoshida cares and worries for Sayu, as that's the only thing that's been on his mind lately. Hashimoto also rants to him for diverting his attention from Sayu. They then arrive at Yoshida's apartment, where Asami and Sayu are waiting for him. It turns out that Sayu wanted to see where Yoshida worked and wanted to walk home with him. Later that night, Sayu asks if she can sleep in bed with Yoshida because it's her last night there with him, and he allows it. After getting into bed with him, Sayu notes how it's the first time the two of them have been so close and promises that she won't do anything weird. However, she grasps onto his back and asks if Yoshida was her father. Would she have been a normal girl? Yoshida states that he's not her father. He's just someone who led her inside his apartment. She agrees and mentions that the place was kind and warm but stops midway. Yoshida then reveals that he has one last surprise for Sayu. He's going to follow her to Hokkaido. Yoshida pats Sayu on the head, saying she'll be lonely going home alone, so he'll keep an eye on her and meet her mom. Sayu hugs Yoshida and thanks him. The next morning, in the parking area just outside Yoshida's apartment, Asami hugs Sayu as Issa and Yoshida stand by and watch. Asami wishes Sayu good luck, and Sayu says she's off. En route to Hokkaido by plane, Yoshida sits next to Sayu, who rests in her chair and is covered with a blanket by him. Issa comments on how he's surprised that Yoshida is tagging along. Yoshida claims he wanted to come along because he wants to support her so she can be brave. Furthermore, because she stayed at his house for an extended time, Yoshida feels that it's his duty to explain it to her family. Speaking bluntly, Issa mentions that he might have a difficult time explaining the situation to their mother, but notes that it had greatly helped Sayu in her mental state. Sayu then awakens and asks if Yoshida really is coming with her, to which he answers that the plane has already lifted and is in the air. Issa then mentions that there's a bit of a drive to their destination, and if Yoshida wants to back out, he better do it at the airport. but Yoshida flatly rejects that suggestion. Sayu giggles, and Yoshida reassures Sayu that he would watch over her until the end. Both Yoshida and Sayu then have a conversation together about how Sayu is enjoying the plane ride and how she never really flies often. Upon arriving at the airport, the group is driven to Sapporo by a chauffeur. This surprises Yoshida, as he figured they lived in Asakawa, but Issa explains that a branch of his company is there, and he needs to quickly pick something up. Noticing Sayu restlessly staring out the window, Yoshida suggests that the two spend some time together, and the suggestion cheers Sayu up. Later, they visit a cafe, and Sayu reveals that she's never really been to a cafe before. When the two decide what they want, Yoshida gets the waitress's attention and orders a hot coffee for himself. Sayu orders only green tea. Just then, Sayu notices a couple of girls sitting outside on a bench and remembers that her mother didn't like it when she returned home late after school. By doing this, Sayu's mother would punish her, and Sayu would never have the time to go to a cafe. Sayu then mentions how happy she was to finally enter a cafe for no reason. Yoshida is a bit pleased to hear that. Yoshida then asks if she is afraid to return home, and Sayu responds that she is, but realizes that's the reason why Yoshida is going with her, to help with being scared. Their beverages are then served, and they enjoy them. By evening, Yoshida and Sayu are driven to Asakawa Roku High School by Issa at Sayu's request. At the location, Sayu is notably nervous and accompanied by Yoshida. The two sneak into the school, avoiding the front gate as it has cameras placed around it. Although Yoshida notes that they're basically trespassing on the school grounds, Sayu argues that he's done something far worse than that, and Yoshida admits that Sayu is right. On that point, inside the school, Sayu, although fearful, states that she wants to head up to the rooftop. At the top of the stairway to the rooftop, Sayu tries to open the door but is unable to unlock it. Therefore, she goes through a nearby window onto the roof. Trembling with fear, Sayu asks Yoshida to come with her, and Yoshida acquiesces immediately. Sayu has flashbacks of her time there with Yuko, one of Sayu's friends who took her own life due to bullying, which is one of the reasons Sayu ran away. She then slowly moves across the roof and falls on her knees by the bench where Yuko and she used to sit. Concerned about her, Yoshida asks if Sayu is all right, and she reassures Yoshida that she is and details that the spot she's in is where it all began. Sayu then rushes over to the fence set up around the rooftop and curses that she wasn't there sooner, blaming herself for Yuko dying. Grabbing hold of Sayu's hand, Yoshida then notices that it was bleeding due to the fence's condition and states that it wasn't her fault. Sayu argues that it was her fault as she didn't protect Yuko well enough, and that Yuko should have found another friend who could have. However, Yoshida reasons that if it weren't for the bullying, they'd be fine and that Yuko sincerely wanted to be her friend from the start. Yoshida reasons with Sayu that it wasn't her fault and that she needs to forgive herself, or else she'll be mentally stuck on that rooftop forever. Sayu then has a tearful meltdown, and Yoshida reaches into his pocket to get a handkerchief to wipe away her tears. Time goes by, and both Yoshida and Sayu sit against the bench on the rooftop. Sayu thanks Yoshida for coming with her. A blast of wind whips by Sayu's face, and she calmly states that she'll see Yuko again sometime. While leaving the school grounds, Sayu promises to buy Yoshida a new handkerchief, but Yoshida dismisses that offer and asks if she's okay now. Sayu answers that she isn't, but then stands in front of the school, softly stating that she's ready to face her mother. Both then return to Issa's car, and they drive to the Ojiwara household. Once they enter the home, Sayu's mother immediately slaps Sayu on the face and berates her for disappearing, which caused nasty rumors to be spread about her. Issa steps in, tries to reason with his mother, and introduces Yoshida as someone who took care of Sayu for a long time. Sayu's mother scoffs at the fact that Yoshida took care of Sayu for a long time and walks away. Left standing in the hallway, Yoshida and Sayu are led into the dining room by Issa. They all sit at the table and discuss her decision to run away from home. Sayu's mother mentions that it brought their family more problems than when she was home. Sayu gives no response, and her mother continues a bit before Sayu cuts her off, saying that her mother isn't even trying to understand. Sayu's mother brushes off the comment, but Sayu asks if her mother recalls what she said to her before she left, but she doesn't. This proves to Sayu that her mother doesn't care about or even try to understand her. Commenting how Sayu has only been home for 5 minutes and she's already complaining, her mother claims that she left just to spite her family. However, Sayu firmly rejects that notion and says she did it to get away from a mother who never tried to understand her and tried to blame her for her friend Yuko's death. As the conversation continues between Sayu and her mother, Yoshida begins to understand why Sayu left her family in the first place. The conversation then shifts to Yoshida, where Sayu's mother speaks disparagingly about him and how he took care of Sayu. Yoshida speaks up for himself, saying he was well aware of the risks of taking care of Sayu, but Sayu's mother still speaks rudely to him. Sayu then speaks out, saying that time and time again, her mother berates the people she is close with and hates her because of it. Yoshida not only helped and took care of her, but he also gave her emotional support. Sayu's mother then goes on a rant and says that she never should have given birth to Sayu. After a pause from everyone in the room, Sayu bursts into tears, and Yoshida almost throws his tea at Sayu's mother but stops himself and drinks it instead. Yoshida then recounts how he almost threw his cup at Sayu's mother but stopped, noting the two different feelings within him. One of anger and another of calmness, both of which are balancing each other out. He also contemplates how people do not choose to be born and how they learn to be responsible for themselves as they grow up, speaking what he just contemplated. Yoshida also declares that he'd like to take care of Sayu until she's an adult, but he also says he can't do that and that it's not his responsibility, but rather that of Sayu's mother. Yoshida then gets off his chair and prostrates himself to Sayu's mother, begging her to take care of Sayu until she's an adult. Sayu's mother is perplexed that a stranger would do that for her. To her astonishment, Isa begs her too, and because of the two of them begging her to take care of Sayu again, Sayu's mother has a nervous breakdown. Both Yoshida and Sayu wait outside the house. Yoshida cries and says that hearing her mother say she never should have given birth to her is far worse than he had expected. He then says that Sayu should have gotten angry at her mother because of it, but Sayu mentions that she did want to get angry but he did first, and tearfully thanks him for it. The two then start to cry together and later enjoy the sight of the beautiful night sky. Sayu then mentions that when Yoshida begged on his knees to her mother, she felt as if she was forgiven. Touching Yoshida's hand, Sayu says that it's all right now. She'll be fine on her own from now on. Reassured by what Sayu said, Yoshida says he understands and grasps her hand while wishing her the best and enjoying each other's company. Yoshida reflects on the universe and how he met Sayu until Isa meets with them and informs them of what he discussed with his mother. Sayu will be able to stay at home until she graduates, and as long as she doesn't cause any trouble, Sayu's mother won't bother her. Isa also claims that Yoshida had a big influence on their mother's decision. He also notes his envy for Yoshida, who begged his mother to take in Sayu again and did it in a way that reinforced that he meant it. Before retiring for the night, Yoshida asks if he could speak with Sayu's mother again, and Isa allows him back inside the house. Yoshida apologizes for his outburst earlier, and Sayu's mother brushes it off, saying it is too late. She asks if he really never did anything to Sayu, which he firmly denies. When asked why he'd go so far for her, he responds that it's because he met her that day in that moment, and that's the only reason. Sayu's mother then says she'll talk things over with Sayu, and that Yoshida should return to Tokyo. The following day, after leaving the dining room where he talked with Sayu's mother, Yoshida spots Sayu standing next to her brother Isa on the staircase. She walks past Yoshida and says that she wants to talk with her mother next. Once she enters the room, Sayu apologizes to her mother for the trouble she's caused and prostrates herself before her. This action leaves Sayu's mother perplexed as Sayu confesses that her built-up frustration made her run away, even though it caused trouble for her mother and brother. Again, Sayu apologizes and prostrates herself to her mother, who refuses to apologize in return. However, Sayu mentions how her private meeting with Yoshida changed her and asks if she really is Sayu's only parent. Sayu emotionally and tearfully answers yes. In light of this, Sayu's mother says that she needs to finish her time in school, which means she's going to be held back a year, and when she's finished, she may do whatever she wants. Once her mother leaves the room, Sayu says thank you and then speaks with Yoshida about how she was able to talk to her mother calmly for the first time. To that, Yoshida praises Sayu as Isa eavesdrops on the conversation between them. Afterward, Yoshida readies himself for bed, and when he does, he struggles to go to sleep. Eventually, Sayu joins him because she wanted to spend their last day together in bed with each other. They then talk about Sayu being able to live her life without him, and while Sayu doesn't want their time to end, Yoshida is confident that she'll be fine. The conversation then changes to a mature request where Sayu asks if she can make love to Yoshida as a last memory. However, once again, Yoshida refuses to accept it, saying they spent over half a year together not as lovers or family. That in itself was enough to preserve the memory of them being together. Tearful again, Sayu embraces Yoshida as he says that Sayu is such a crybaby. Later, as Sayu sleeps soundly in bed, Yoshida watches her sleep while sitting on a chair. The following day, Yoshida is dropped off at the Hokkaido airport by both Isa and Sayu in a terminal way. Isa asks Sayu to go ahead and allow him to speak with Yoshida alone for a bit, and she accepts. Alone together, Isa hands Yoshida an envelope filled with money for the airplane fare. However, Yoshida refuses to accept it as Isa already paid for his plane tickets. On the other hand, Isa still insists, but Yoshida still refuses and suggests he use the money to buy Sayu some new clothes. Understanding Yoshida's sentiment, Isa then asks if he likes Sayu, to which Yoshida replies that he likes older women, which Issa understands. Issa then says that if Yoshida didn't get drunk or went home a little earlier than he intended to, he'd never have met his sister. Because of that, Issa then sincerely thanks Yoshida. The two then shake hands and part ways by the terminal gates. Yoshida talks with Sayu briefly about what he talked about with her brother. When the announcement that Yoshida's plane is now able to be boarded is made, Yoshida tries to part ways with Sayu, but she stops him, confessing that she's glad she ran away from home because if she hadn't, she'd never have met Yoshida in the first place. After hearing this, Yoshida says that he's glad he met her. However, Yoshida compliments her appearance but confesses that he cannot see her the same way she feels for him. When asked if she'll have a chance when she's older, Yoshida says he'll be far too old for her then and suggests she put the memory of their time together in a box to live her new life. Sayu tearfully mentions that a box isn't big enough to contain her precious memories with him, and then she grasps Yoshida's hands and promises to one day meet him again. Yoshida acknowledges it, and Sayu starts to cry over it. With that, the two go their separate ways. Yoshida boards his plane, and Sayu returns to her brother's car. That evening at Yoshida's apartment, Yoshida finds a special note left by Sayu stating, "I'm leaving my scent so remember me forever," as well as a button-up shirt that she wore with her scent on it and her own recipe book. Believing he has no need to use the book, Yoshida then tries cooking his own miso soup, but when he tastes it, he comments on how bad it is and how it fails to compare to Sayu's, shedding a tear. Yoshida falls backward and claims that he's not okay. 2 years pass by, and Yoshida is at work, helping his coworker Mishima review some documents she's having trouble with. As it turns out, Yuzuha is now the head of a big project, which amuses Yoshida as she was once a big-time slacker and has changed so much in 2 years. Ari then approaches the group and offers to take them all out to dinner in celebration of Yuzuha's project. However, Yoshida declines as he has a prior commitment with Asami. Ari understands and says that she will invite him some other day, but Yuzuha mentions that Yoshida owes her a date, which confuses him. Hashimoto looks at Yoshida and comments that Asami is also cute, to which Yoshida tells him to shut up. Later that night, while walking home, Yoshida briefly talks on the phone with Asami. As he puts his phone down, he finds Sayu sitting by the same lamppost where he first found her. Yoshida's eyes fill with tears upon seeing Sayu. He then wipes away his tears and approaches Sayu, asking, "Hey, what are you doing here at this hour?" Sayu replies, "I have a home to go to, but it's far. So, will you let me stay at your place, mister?" Both of them blush, and the anime ends with their reunion in the same way they met for the first time. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more anime recaps just like this.